Hello, welcome to Business Basics. So we're going to start off very basic by first categorizing investing, and to do that we're going to need to define some basic nuances that go along with it. So just a brief note, the video series is going to start off with small 2 to 3 minute videos, but as we get into more complex and advanced concepts, then the video length is going to start getting a little longer. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's get started with securities. So first of all, what is a security? A security is a negotiable financial instrument that holds some type of monetary value. That's the book definition. So what does that mean? That basically means that it's a financial instrument or something having to do with finance that has a constantly changing price. So what's an example of that? Well, three examples are stocks, bonds, and options. We'll get into all three really extensively within the video series. But let's take stocks, since that's probably the one you're most familiar with. So stocks, as we can see and hear in the news, that those are items that have a constantly changing price. We hear about always the Dow Jones hitting new highs or new lows, unfortunately, but those are examples of prices that are constantly changing and having to do with finances, so financial instruments. So that a stock is a perfect example of a security. So what are the two types of securities? Well, we have equity securities and we have debt securities. So an equity security, like a stock, is where we give money to a company and that company grants us a share or a percentage of ownership of that company's stock. So for example, I give my money to Google, I buy one share, and then I buy however much that one share is in proportion to the company's value as a whole. So I'd have that amount of ownership of Google, which is a very small ownership, but still, that's the basic concept of an equity security. Now, a debt security is where money has to be repaid within a certain time period. So for example, a bond. A bond is when you give your money to the government can do what they want with that money, but then within the basic terms or the stipulations of that bond, the government has to repay you that whole money, the full price that you paid them, depending on the value of the bond, and they have to repay you that money within the time period stipulated by the bond. Now, if we look at certificates of deposits or CDs, so that's where I give or I keep my money in a bank. The bank is going to use that money for their purpose. But whenever I need that money and I request that money, the bank has to repay me that money within that time period. And they repay me the full amount that I gave in, depending on the account. So a bond and CDs, those are two common types of debt securities. So let's recap. What is a security? A security is a financial instrument with a constantly changing price, i.e. stocks. And a stock is an example of an equity security, which we defined as us getting some amount of equity or ownership within a company or a corporation, or it just depends on the partnership. And then the second type of security is a debt security, where one gives money to another, and then the person who receives the money has to repay that money back depending on the time period of the contract or financial time period, right? But so the two types, equity and debt. Okay, so that about wraps it up for our first lesson with securities. If you liked the video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below for more lessons. Thanks, and looking forward to seeing you in the next video.